Football! It is Brad Smith. It's not Ryan Ripken of the Ryan Ripken Show. I am in studio here with my boy Zach, and listen. What is love, Zach? What is love? You know what love is? Love is saying yes to getting married in the middle of the football season, not just to miss one football game, but two. Ryan Ripken of the Ryan Ripken Show will be with us momentarily. I think he is going to be tuning in live from his destination. I just wanted to say good on that man for not skipping just one, but two football
dedication
weeks. And, you know, not that it really matters a whole lot because the Orioles are no longer in it, but this was a risky play on the baseball side too, only because it's the same weekend the Yankees are in town.
Gosh, if that was meaningful baseball, that would be. Shout out to the O's. Shout out to the O's on that one.
Shout out to the O's. Shout out to Rip. We got some people tuning in, so welcome to the show. Listen, we got a preview of Ravens Browns. It's going to be an interesting game. The Ravens are celebrating their 30th year anniversary of being the Ravens, which is kind of crazy. It's the same year of 21-31. We just got done talking about all that. A lot happened in 1995, Zach.
Yeah, wouldn't know, but it seems like a great year. Sounds like a great year.
You weren't even thought of.
Yeah, that was. I was not a thought, but I've heard nothing but great things about the year of 95, especially this summer. I mean, 21-31, then the Ravens just a few weeks later.
Yeah,
kick it off. Incredible that people, and by people I mean Browns fans, somehow created a storyline out of the Ravens celebrating 30 years on the first home game. They're like, how dare the Ravens celebrate their 30th anniversary in their home opener?
I mean, yes, but the Ravens claim that this was planned before they knew what the schedule was. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know if there's proof of that or not, but either way, even if it's not, what a troll that is.
Yeah, I would be more on this is a complete troll. Like, this is good on them for just trolling them. If this was like a random week 6 game.
Yeah.
But it being the home opener, I'm like, what, did you guys want them to be like, crap, we got to delay it a week because we don't want to look out. Yeah, we want to look out for the Browns' feelings here. We don't want to. Gosh, we were going to just do the home opener. Now it's against the Browns. I guess we got to scrap that because
God forbid we highlight your poverty franchise and show you how to actually run a quality one. And by the way, you haven't been relevant since you've come back either. Yeah. So it's just I don't know. I mean, people want to equate this to it's the same as the Colts. It isn't the same as the Colts. You know why? Because the Browns got to keep all of their records. The Browns got to basically keep everything. And they came back as the Browns. Colts left town, lied about it, took all the records with them. It's as if the Colts never existed.
Yeah, and I mean, the Browns immediately just stayed. Yes, different team, but they got the team back.
Yeah,
immediately. There wasn't that massive gap.
It's not remotely the same.
Yeah,
right.
No, it is not the same at all.
So suck it up. Deal with it. Big deal. Who cares? So the other thing is, if the Browns had stayed in Cleveland, no Super Bowls.
Yeah, I don't know.
No chance that was happening.
Yeah, I don't think that changes.
No. They still wouldn't have a Super Bowl.
Browns are the Browns.
The Brownies are the Brownies. I will say it's a homecoming for Joe Flacco. And I'm kind of excited for that. We have some footage. We actually talked to Joe about this, and we'll bring that up in a moment. I've seen Rip come in and out of whatever he's doing. Maybe he'll show up to the show. Maybe he won't. I'm not sure.
We're playing it by ear.
We're playing it by. I don't know where he's at. But before we get into any of that, I did want to just highlight. We had a game last week, Zach, Bills and Ravens. There was some good things and bad things about that game. And, there's some key highlights, in my opinion, that I think could carry over into this game. And number one for me is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry ran for had a 46-yard run, a 30-yard run. He had over 100 yards in the first quarter. That guy ran over everybody. And I'm not saying that the same thing's going to happen in this game, but you got to start with the run and lean on that run, Derrick Henry is back to original form, and I am pumped about that for this game in particular. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry, not the guy I would shit talk. Like, to be honest,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like there's so many other. I understand, like Jerry Jeudy, him being like the Ravens secondary. If you look at the past few years, or beginning of last year, start of this season, just one game. He's right. I mean, they gave up a lot of yards in the fourth. I mean, it looked pretty easy to throw the ball against them. So, when Jerry Jeudy says that, point taken. Okay, that's valid. I did they watch Derrick Henry last week? Like, yeah, he had the fumble, but he is far from like he was. He had that thing humming.
Derrick Henry doesn't fumble the ball, and that was like a shocker, I think, for everybody. Yeah, including the Browns or the Bills last week. I feel like the Bills are like, holy shit, he actually fumbled the ball. Like that just doesn't happen. But yeah, a lot of the shit talking that happened on the Browns locker room this past week, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. There was also some weird things going on in the Ravens secondary locker room with Marlon talking about how, they were, I don't know, the secondary was bad in certain areas, and then Kyle Hamilton coming out and being like, I don't necessarily agree with that. That was just kind of a weird dynamic.
Yeah, it was like that thing where I guess Harbaugh had said that they were too immature or something. And then Marlon reiterated that, and then Kyle used a synonym for immature. He was like, we're not immature. And then he says something that was pretty much immature. And it's like, okay, I think the whole point is we need to figure something out in the secondary.
Get your shit together.
Yeah, I don't think it was the wording. It was like, hey, let's figure it out. Which, I mean, hey, and, we're going to get into this more, obviously, Joe Flacco, he's going to come out slinging it. He is going to come out slinging it, but that also means opportunity. We've seen the good, bad, and ugly of Joe Flacco.
Oh, we've seen it.
He's going to sling it, but that does not always mean that it's going to end up in the offense's hands.
Correct.
There should be opportunity today for the secondary to make plays. I mean, we saw Chidozie, both of these were tough interceptions, both diving, but Awuzie had one go through his hands. Malachi Starks on the first drive of the year last week had one go through his hands. Both of them, are going to say they should have caught that. So that, probably another opportunity or two out there today. Just got to hope that they can, catch an interception versus the Browns this year. Let's do that. Let's not have a repeat of last season.
No, I do not need to relive that. And with that being said, Rip says he's good. He thinks he's good. Yeah. So we're gonna do a live sound check right here. Rip, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
You can.
Hey.
You can hear me.
We can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Oh, can I hear you? Yeah. Hey, welcome, guys. Thank you. I thought I might just stay behind the curtain the entire show and just hang out and figure out what the hell I'm doing. But you guys sound great. The storylines, Brad, hell of a jersey,
Oh, yeah. Go.
It's an exciting time. First game back in Baltimore. I feel opening day for Major League Baseball, like that's number one for fans going to start a season. And then for football, it's first home game, right? Yeah. So the bank's going to be rocking. I got to say, though, guys, I mean, there's so many different ways. I know throughout the show, because you guys got me for about, 15, 20 minutes here. We have a lot of clips from this past week of analysts that have come on to talk about the week. You had legend Joe Thomas talking about the psyche of what it's like when things are going right, wrong. I think he's a good guy to listen to on that. Marvin Lewis, Ross Tucker, who will be covering the game. So we got a lot of great insights, but it's also you're waking up with us. So we're going to have a good time. Yeah, man, week 2. And both teams, by the way, the biggest thing is divisional game, and the Ravens are trying to not repeat what they did last year, which was devastating week 1 loss. Or I shouldn't say devastating, heartbreaking week 1 loss. And then following up with an unforgettable or forgettable week 2. Last year was the Raiders. This year, the Browns are coming to town, which the Ravens are heavily favored again. That could be for a different time. The 11.5 that it's at, guys, I'm not confident that the Ravens are going to have the B word.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going the under. I feel like the first 4 weeks, the safest bet in the NFL is betting the under.
Yeah.
I think it was 12-4. The under was in the first week of the season.
Yeah. Well, that's not a surprise at all to me.
No.
Now, Zach and I were talking about the last week's game a little bit, and I was just starting to get into the good first before we got into the bad and the ugly. The good for me was Derrick Henry at over 100 yards in the first quarter, and I think that's going to be a perfect playbook for this week's game. Zay Flowers had a 23-yard reception. DeAndre Hopkins had a ridiculous 29-yard touchdown catch. There's a lot to like about last week's game, and I think that it kind of gets overshadowed by the fact that it got blown in the last 5 minutes. So, but I do think that there's a lot that you should be excited about as a Ravens fan going up into this game.
Yeah, I mean, you should. I mean, the Ravens did everything you wanted offensively, minus that Mark Andrews only had one catch for 5 yards. But they threw until the final 3 drives, right? They did everything that they wanted to do. They put up a 40-burger, you know, and they made history for the wrong reasons, you know, rushing for over 200 yards, 40 yards or 40 points in the game and lose, you know, and the Ravens offense isn't going to be a problem for this season. It's going to be, can you make the critical plays to close out a game? And then on defense, can you get that one interception or one turnover? And if you don't, can you get that one stop that stops the bleeding so you can walk out of places like Buffalo, which, like, one thing, can we get this straight? That was a tough loss. Buffalo is going to be in this thing the whole year. Buffalo is really good. It wasn't like they went and lost to the Panthers.
Yeah.
They lost to one of the best teams in football. Yeah. But the disappointing thing is you are going to have to beat a team like Buffalo, a team like Kansas City, and you can't afford that in the playoffs. And that's happened in the past where the Ravens last year is a perfect example, right? Multiple turnovers in the playoff game. Josh Allen didn't turn the ball over once, but he didn't do much. But he didn't have to. The Ravens had to battle back, and then the Mark Andrews 2-point conversion play. That's what people remember. But what I remember was not a clean game. So against the Brownies, I think the only way Cleveland wins is if Baltimore doesn't play clean. I think that's what it feels like.
Here's the other thing that I think that you're getting into the kind of like the good, bad, the bad and the ugly parts. For me, it was the defensive shortcomings. Obviously, one of them being no turnovers forced in that game against the Bills, which, you know, there was a couple of close calls, but like not one turnover, which was indicative of the beginning of the season last year for the defense. One sack. Missed tackles all over the place. And so to your point, clean football, I think more specifically on the defensive side than the offensive side, in my opinion.
Oh, no doubt, for sure. I mean, hell, I think the bigger part, and I don't know when you guys want to start playing some clips, but the big part is, for me, is as a player, how do you get out of your head when things are going well? And let's just say the Browns have a good moment, and it's not like the, oh shit, here we go again. It's the, well, all right, let's lock back in. Let's make a stop. Let's shut this game down, because there's going to be a lot of emotions. And quite frankly, the Browns guys, as much as you can look on paper, the Ravens and Browns have split the series recently. And if you look back to the last couple of years, what has happened? It's been Browns. Last year was the weird game in Cleveland. We all remember that. Year before in Baltimore, Cleveland came back from a huge deficit and won the game. So
with an injury, Deshaun Watson.
I still couldn't believe that.
Deshaun Watson, he hurt his ankle, his shoulder.
Yeah, everything. He hasn't played since, has he? No, he played a little bit and then tore his.
He came back and got hurt. So so much with it. But yeah, you guys are running the ship on it. So you tell me when you guys want to play some clips, have some fun. But yeah, I'm just going to hydrate here. It's going to be a long week.
Do you have the Joe Thomas clip, Zach?
Yeah, we want to play.
Yeah, so we as Rip had said, we talked to Joe Thomas and basically talking about what happens at the end of the game. Like, how is it that a team that puts up 40 points is up by 15 points going into the last 5 minutes of the game blow it? And so, like, seems to be a common theme here. So Joe Thomas was shedding some light on that. So go ahead and play that clip, Zach.
Teams maybe come undone down the stretch. Is it more of the game plan isn't working out down the stretch, or is it the psychology of a player of not keeping the foot on the gas? Or we all have that moment. You don't want to say it out loud, but you go, oh shit, here we go again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think players, they get in that situation where you start playing not to lose. And I think that's the worst situation to be in as an athlete, because you become cautious. You start playing tight. You're not taking the calculated risks and chances that you should take to be able to make somebody pay if they're taking those risks to try to get themselves back in the game. And so I think that's where a lot of players and a lot of coaches fall into this trap of, all right, we got a 15-point lead. There's only 5 minutes left. As long as we don't turn the ball over, as long as we don't give up any big plays, we're going to win this game. Mm-hmm. And so you do take your foot off the gas, but then you play very conservative and very tight, and you give them all the easy stuff on defense. And so now they're just kind of bing, 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 moving their way down the field. And then pretty soon they're in the red zone and it's too late to tighten up. And that's why these quarterbacks are making 40+ million a year, because they're worth it, because they do have that ability to make you pay, to lead their team back when they're down by 15 points in the fourth quarter, because they can literally put the team on their back. And then now they're taking some more risks than they would have taken maybe in the beginning part of the game. And those things are wide open because the defense is afraid to take any risks, to try to make a play, to try to do the things that they normally do within the course of their defensive philosophy. And then consequently on offense, you're not pushing the ball. And so defenses now, they're sucking up on the line of scrimmage. They're adding guys, they're pressuring you, they're blitzing, because they're not as worried about you trying to take shots. And so it becomes really difficult in offensive football when you have extra defenders at the line of scrimmage trying to take away your run game. They're taking chances. They're trying to rip the ball out. They're blitzing. They're doing things that are a little bit reckless. But if you don't ever make them pay, you're playing right into their hands.
So I think that goes right into this conversation of anyone that's been in a situation that Joe's referring to. You don't have to play in the NFL. You don't have to play professional baseball where you're up big and you can feel the momentum shift. Any part of your life that you've been on a team and a team has made a comeback, there's that moment that you can sense the momentum shift. And in that game in Buffalo, you could feel it coming on, but then you felt like, all right, Baltimore can still put a stop to this. There was some luck. Obviously, tip ball in the air. Keon Coleman catches it. Derrick Henry is your surefire guy. He was unbelievable. He had an unfortunate fumble. But then that last drive to still put the game away. And you could feel the Ravens were a little bit tighter. It felt a little bit more predictable. You took the ball out of Lamar's hands with the Zay Flowers sweep. Things like that didn't feel what the Ravens did earlier in the game. They got tight. I think that it got tight and they got conservative. I think for one thing, guys, and you guys can let me know your opinion, but with the Baltimore Ravens as well, talent's not an issue. They got it. And I'm not worried about them long-term for this season. It's always going to be what do they do in the playoffs. I do think, though, on defense, not establishing what their identity is. Like, let's look in the past when we're saying about that style of play.
Yep.
When Rex Ryan was a defensive coordinator, even Chuck Pagano, their MO was, we're going to be aggressive. We're going after the quarterback whenever. And that sometimes burned the Ravens, but their identity was pressure. And when you get a lead, we're still coming at you. Zach Orr and this new group, it's year 2. And I think there's a lot of still, what is our defense's strengths going to be? And one thing that they still have to figure out is how do we force turnovers? They did not get home, no pass rush. So what type of defense is going to be?
I was just going to say, I think that's why there's so much outrage from fans, even though it's only week 1, because this is exactly what we saw last year. And it feels as though there have been 0 improvements. Now, obviously, it's prisoner of the moment. The 0 improvements thing is not a thing. But when it looks exactly how it did week 1 last year, and even in the middle of the season last year, you have a lot of fans going, well, this is the same old Ravens. And now we got to get rid of John Harbaugh. We got to get rid of Zach Orr and all the other things. So how is it that they can improve on this game versus the Cleveland Browns, Zach?
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing that fans are really frustrated about is, like you said, it kind of does feel like the same old Ravens. And in fact, I'll show you kind of how. I'll read this quote. Quote, in order for us to take that next step and be a championship football team, we're not going to survive week in and week out doing things like this. Ravens quarterback, said, "We've got to keep the foot on the gas and learn how to put teams away." Now, that wasn't Lamar Jackson. That was Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
In 2016. So this has been an issue. If we want to talk about what the Ravens do, they take their foot off the gas. That we're now looking at almost 10 years of Ravens quarterbacks going, "Hey, I would love if we could keep our foot on the gas and actually put these games away." I don't know what it is. It does feel like the Ravens, they get up by 15, by 21. We talked about week 3 last year. The Ravens were really close to blowing that massive lead versus the Cowboys and being 0-3.
Yep.
Then we would have had some major conversations. But, it feels like, and every Ravens fan feels it, they get up and it gets to that middle of the third and you almost see like the gears switch and you're like, oh no, they're going into conservative mode.
Mm-hmm.
They're going into don't get beat deep by 70 yards, but we'll give you 4 15-yard plays. And it's like you sit there and you're like, what Joe Thomas talked about, we'll get into what Ross Tucker talked about. It's, you need in these critical positions, in situations, you need to go, okay, they're going all out for it. If we counter in this way, we can catch them off guard. We got them.
Right.
We're going to hit you with aggressiveness as well, because now something's going to happen and we're going to bank on we get the ball. You all of a sudden have to make a quick decision instead of sitting in prevent and you're like, okay, where do I want to go? We're going to blitz. We're going to make you make a quick decision and we're going to hope you make the wrong one. And it feels like they kind of lull back. So I think really the big thing, and I know we've been saying it for years, be more aggressive. Don't play. The biggest thing is when you can tell they're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. So that's my biggest thing. If they can just find a way today, if they get up big, I don't care if they are up 21 in the fourth, throwing the ball deep.
Yep.
Do it. Do whatever you can. If you have the opportunity, if Zay Flowers on a play action can get 20, 30 yards down the field, Rashad Bateman, you can hit him over the top and put this thing away with a deep shot, do it. But, you can't just get into the, okay, we're running Zay Flowers sweep 4 times just to the sideline and having him go down for a loss of 2.
Right.
And then we're punting it, but at least we wasted a minute 40.
100%.
Yeah. It's just being true to who you are. And this is the one thing I'll say with the Lions, that Dan Campbell got criticized to an extent where, hey, you don't need to go for it for a 2-point conversion from the 15-yard line when you can tie a game. Right?
I will say, though, that is one of the greatest explanations ever when they were like, wait, why did you, after the penalty, why'd you still go for 2 from the 10? He goes, because I told my guys we were going for 2.
Exactly. So but you know what? They believed in that philosophy. And Dan's like, we are who we are. So for the Ravens, just being who they are moving forward, be aggressive, be the team that you can be. And guys, hopefully it turns out to be a great game today. And hopefully for Baltimore fans, they're winning it. So you guys know I got a couple things I got to do. But before we get out of here, Zach, we also every Sunday want to keep this in mind. First, like and subscribe. So we're going to be doing this Get Up, how you doing, every Sunday morning, talk about football, the Ravens and whatnot. But we're also going to give you options for tailgating, which for drinks, food, and first part of our series, Zach, if you don't mind playing it real quickly, we were at Merritt. We made some tacos, and not the ones that are, well, we love a good taco. But if you're like, you know what, I'm in the season and I want to have a healthier taco and don't sacrifice flavor, Zach can attest to this. He was there with me. There is this Greek yogurt dip that might have been the best dip I've ever had in my entire life. Zach, can you play that clip before I get out of here?
And that's Greek yogurt?
Yeah.
All right, Stephanie, now you can talk about what we have here.
So we have some shredded chicken tacos, chicken breast, black beans, Rotel's diced chilies and tomatoes. Throw that into a crock pot for about 8 hours with taco seasoning. Mix it all up, fold it into a tortilla, sprinkle some cheese on top, bake them, done. And then you dip it in this. This is a Greek yogurt chipotle dip. Greek yogurt in there, scallions, cilantro, limes. So good.
Okay, so I don't even know how to go about this. Do I dip it? Do I dunk it? Cheers.
So easy.
Shirts and pants, dude. Wait, and that's Greek yogurt?
Yeah.
One more bite just to be safe. This is unbelievable.
It wasn't.
I did have to test it a couple times just to make sure, but every Sunday we're going to be showing off a different recipe, and I'm not kidding you. That was delicious. And she said 8 hours of taco seasoning. If you don't want to do it for that long, you throw it in the crock pot or the air fryer, whatever the heck it is, for like 25 minutes, and you're done. You're done. And then you can just stuff your face, which we will do every Sunday. And we're going to have some cocktails in the studio right there where Brad is moving forward. But shout out to Merit Clubs. They have a newsletter where they have these recipes. But right here on the Ryan Ripken Show, we're going to give out each one that we can for a different style that you can enjoy at the lots, at your home, or even on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday when you're just hanging out. But fellas, appreciate it. I will text you. Brad, Zach, you got a whole bunch of clips for these guys here, from Marvin Lewis to Ross Tucker. Gosh, I don't even know who else we got, but for everyone there, you are going to get some great insight for the rest of this show. And Brad and Zach are here to steer the ship for you. Cool?
Appreciate you, Rip. The things you do for love. You know, the things you do for love.
Yep, you can't. Yeah, that sign says "Be kind." We need a sign that says "For love." I don't like that ending, but I'm going to get out of here on that. All right, guys.
All right, see you, Rip. That was Ryan Ripken of the Ryan Ripken Show, ladies and gentlemen. We got to work on his outros.
Okay. I mean, it was a way to way to leave. That's for sure. You know, it was a way to leave.
I would have preferred an Irish goodbye if that's how it was going to go down. So yeah, I mean, look, we got a big week. We got a lot of big interviews that we had this past week, Zach, and getting into that, I would say, which one you want to start off with? Like, you want to stay onto the Ravens defense topic and get into?
Yeah, let's stay Ravens defensive topic right now.
So we had Ross on, and he's going to be calling the game, talking about this Ravens defense and what his perspective is coming into from last week's game into this week's game. You want to touch a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so pretty much talk to Ross Tucker and like we said, covering the game today. And he really emphasized it's kind of like Joe Thomas talked about. It's the critical situations. Like it is between, the low leverage situations last week. Ravens defense played great from the middle of the first quarter after that first drive all the way up until the end of the first half, where, it was that 17 seconds or however much time they had. It was the little situations. It was end of game and like, how do they manage that? And, Ross really talked about, this is where the Ravens have to clean it up pretty much, because if they don't, they're going to keep getting beaten critical situations.
Right.
So let's play that clip and we'll react to it on the other side.
They have enough talent on the defensive side of the ball. They certainly have some very good players at all three levels.
Mm-hmm.
They have a unique ability, and it's not good to not make the critical play that they need to make in critical situations, right? Like I thought the end, people focus on the end of the game. I thought the end of the first half was really bad. I mean, really bad.
Yeah.
You allow a 30-yard throw for Josh Allen to break contain. That even got him in position so that they could throw the out route to Kincaid with 1 second left and bang that field goal. That field goal ended up being the difference in the game. These things matter. And to me, that was unacceptable that happened in that manner for the Ravens defense. And obviously the second half, at the end of the game, I think they ran out of gas. I mean, they had 80-some snaps on defense. That's a lot. I think they only had 51 snaps on offense, 84 on defense. Most time it's like 65-65, right? So I really think since it was the first game, the Ravens kind of ran out of gas. They also had a lot of misfortune, right? I mean, Henry never fumbles. He fumbled. Fourth down, they have the ball. It's a bad ball by Josh Allen. Tips off Dawson Knox's hand right to this other kid, Keon Coleman, for a touchdown. But, that stuff like that seems to snowball against the Ravens more often than other teams.
So I think
Say that again.
Yeah, I think the way that I perceive the current, I guess, era of the Ravens defense is it's like when you're watching a high school football game and the team's up by 50 and they're just like, okay, like whatever, this game's over. And most of the time it is over because the other team just sucks that bad.
Yeah.
But this is the goddamn NFL. And you can't just do that. You can't just be up by 30 points and assume the game's over because it's never over.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the case in all professional sports. I just wonder. So, and Chuck T says they were gassed. They were gassed at the last 7 minutes of the game because of the hurry up offense that the Bills were running. They didn't, like, if the defense had been as stifling as they had been, let's just say the first, I don't know, 28 minutes of the game, then they wouldn't have had to worry about the hurry up offense, because at that point the Bills would have been so far out of the game they would have just conceded. But when you're down by 2 scores, you got 5 minutes left. Everybody knows that can happen in an instant, and it did.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we all know about the collapse, but I like that Ross pointed out at the end. Well, he started with, the Ravens have this weird way, and I like how he put it. It's not a good thing that they just can't make a play in the critical situation. And a lot of times it's bad luck. Like, I mean, that fourth down where the ball tips off Dawson Knox's hands, gets redirected, Keon Coleman makes the grab in the back of the end zone. I think people, like, and including myself, I think we kind of forget that ball falls incomplete. The Ravens could kneel it 3 times and punt it right back. It would have been a 15-point game still with about 2 minutes left.
Yep.
Like, it would have been a singular first down ends the game at that point. If they get that fourth down stop, if that ball just hits the ground after being tipped and doesn't go right to a Bills player, that game's over. Like, the Ravens win. So, like, yes, there is luck. There is, things that snowball against the Ravens. But I do think, it's little things. You can't, we talk about that last drive in the first half where they get the 30-yard pass and then they get, with 7 seconds left, the out route. And it's little things where it's like, hey, there is one thing that you cannot allow to have happen on that final play, and it's them get out of bounds.
Right.
Like, you should have 11 guys just security along the sideline at that point.
Correct.
The one thing you couldn't allow happen is they get out of bounds. It happens. And now, they kick the field goal. Suddenly you lose by 1. Did that decide the game? No. But I can tell you the Ravens wish they had those 3 points.
It all adds up, right? I mean, and they do wish they had the 3 points. That was the deciding factor in the game. And so it's still just more head scratching on the defensive side of the ball, which is so uncharacteristic. If you've been a lifelong fan of the Ravens for the last 30 years, as I have, the defense was always the mainstay. It was always like, what's going on with the offense? Why can't we get a decent quarterback? And then Joe Flacco came along, and he was okay in the regular season and absolutely became an elite quarterback in the playoffs. But like, even then, there were still complaints on the offensive side of the ball. How come there's nobody for Joe Flacco to throw to until Anquan Bolden came along? So like, but now it just seems like it's been flipped. All of a sudden, there's a lot to complain about on the other side of the ball, and the offense just puts up 40 burgers whenever they feel like it. I know there's a couple of other clips. Speaking of Joe Flacco, maybe we can transition to this one. So there is a game happening today that's not against the Bills. It's against the Browns. And it's actually the first time that Joe Flacco since 2018 is playing in Baltimore, not as a Raven, Zach.
Crazy. It's crazy to think about that.
And it just so happens it's on the 30th anniversary celebration day as well. So lots of weird things happening on this glorious Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, that it's one of those cool things for the NFL where, like, Joe Flacco, of course, he's coming back to Baltimore on the 30th. Like, that's one of the cool things, storylines that kind of is getting overshadowed by the fact that Browns fans are just upset that we're having this on the home opener. I do think it's going to be really cool to see Joe back in Baltimore. Wish him nothing but interceptions during those 60 minutes. But, I do hope he gets a warm welcome, which he will. Yeah. I don't think there's no doubt in my mind he's going to get the welcome he deserves because, he brought a Lombardi to Baltimore. If you do that, I don't care what your career's like the rest of the way, any of that, if you bring a Lombardi to a city, that city's going to love you. Like, it's very rare where you see a Super Bowl winning quarterback not be loved like that by their town. So super excited to see Joe back in Baltimore. It is kind of crazy to think about he hasn't been back.
I know.
It makes no sense.
7 years?
Yeah, you would think that at some point he'd return, but he hasn't. It's been
especially because he's played a little bit of everywhere. And he just hasn't been back to Baltimore. We did talk to Joe about coming back though, and his response was probably as you would expect. We're going to play the clip though anyway. We had Joe Flacco on the show talking about his return to Baltimore. So Zach, why don't we go ahead and play that clip?
Keep going as long as you can, Joe. Just against Baltimore, just take it.
Yeah.
Listen,
it'll be. I sure hope I'm on the field, and it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, I played him a couple years ago, but it'll be more fun going back into Baltimore. I haven't been back in that stadium, since I've left, and it's just an unbelievable place to play. So it'll be a little bit different coming in a different uniform, but still, nonetheless, it would be amazing.
hey, to wrap up real quick, it's all love for you in Baltimore, Joe. No doubt about it. And anytime you want to come and try lemon ricotta pancakes, Kyle, that's what we're gonna have on the list.
There you go. There you have it.
And lemon ricotta pancakes.
So yeah, I mean, look, that's not a surprise. We've seen this from Joe several times as he's been asked about when he got traded, when he, anytime there was a chance that he could come back to Baltimore. There was even conversation of him being the backup quarterback in Baltimore for a very brief time that really didn't amount to much of anything. But we even talked to Joe about that, and he was like, would have loved to come back. It wouldn't have been weird for him at all. And so this typical Joe. I actually am looking forward to seeing Joe Flacco out there. I don't know if I am looking forward to him doing much of anything else.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's going to be and that's where it's gonna. I have to tame my, the inner child that grew up watching Joe Flacco, because he's gonna run out on the field in Baltimore the first time, and I'm gonna be like, holy crap, Joe Flacco's back! Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, in orange and white.
Yeah, and then very quickly he's gonna complete a pass, and I'm gonna be like, can we knock this old man off? Like, what are we doing? Can we knock him off his feet? Can somebody hit this man?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Right.
Like, it is going to quickly turn, I think, and that's good. And I think that's what Joe's going to do. I'm sure Joe's going to have his moment where he's going to take it all in, and then his goal is going to be to beat the crap out of the Baltimore Ravens. So, as a fan, I will very much, I'm going to appreciate seeing him back out there. Very exciting. And then the second that ball snapped, I'm going to be like, someone pick him off. I'm going to be like, come on. Like, what are we doing? I'm like, he's like 40. Like, what are we doing?
What do you mean he's scrambling around out there? He was a statue for his entire career, and you're just letting him running around?
So, Joe Flacco's occasional, and it is so funny when he still does it every once in a while. But it used to be so funny when he was in Baltimore, and it's just like a giraffe.
Yeah.
Like, he takes off and going from that to Lamar is just so because Joe, you're like, oh, he's taking off. And then you're like, 4 seconds, you're like, all right, he's crossed the line of scrimmage. All right, here we go. And you're like 8 seconds later, you're like, gain of 6. Okay, there we go. Now Lamar, you're like, he runs around for 45 seconds. You're like, he gained 43 after a loss. And you're like, I just blinked. So it's like, where'd he go? Yeah, two very different style quarterbacks, but it's going to be really fun. And I'm also excited to see, obviously, hopefully after a Ravens win, the interaction between Lamar and Joe in the center.
Yeah, we actually text Joe this week to see if we could have him on. He obviously was kind of bombarded with a bunch of other media obligations, which is all good, but he definitely wants to come back on. So maybe we'll have him back sometime after this game, maybe later on in the season. But yeah, excited to see Joe out there again. And, he talked a little bit about how it's a little bit different for him too, from a life standpoint, because all those time, earlier days when he won the Super Bowl and when the team when it was just like on an absolute tear, his kids were either not born or they're very, very little, and so it's like different when he's describing how he's playing now. It's like his kids are excited to see him out there because they just didn't know that he was just this legend in Baltimore.
Yeah, that made me so upset when I even told Joe, I was like, the fact that his children are going to be like, yeah, my dad was a Cleveland Brown.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be like, yeah, like that was, everyone in Cleveland loves him. He's like I think he played elsewhere before, but like, yeah, he's a Cleveland Brown. And I was like, they have no clue.
No.
All the stories, all the highlights, Mile High Miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so crazy to look back on. I mean, also like that being 13 years ago is.
It is.
I mean,
crazy.
If
Baltimore's due.
If you would have told me, I mean, imagine in 2017 when Lamar Jackson won the Heisman.
Yeah.
If you would have told Baltimore fans like, yeah, Joe Flacco and Lamar are facing off in Baltimore in 2025, you're like, we still have Joe Flacco. You're like, what? And it's like, no, you guys got it. And then you're like, Joe Flacco's on the Browns and Joe Flacco's still playing. Right. Think of all the players that have come and gone while Joe Flacco is just still trucking around. Like that's one of those things where he is going to, at the end of his career, which, you know, I do enjoy, will be one of those all-time, you know, he's become an NFL fan favorite. Yeah. Like when Joe Flacco, like there are so many, you know, no offense to anyone, there are so many backup quarterbacks when they enter the game that you're like, this game is going to be so boring. When Joe Flacco enters a game to pick up for someone, you're like, oh, we're airing this thing out. Like this is anyone at any point might receive the football right now.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, you know, we are obviously previewing some stuff for today's game. And Zach, I did want to highlight a couple of things. With this game coming up, it's a bit interesting because when you look at the stats between the Browns and the Bengals last week versus the Ravens and the Bills, these two games couldn't have been more different. The Browns allowed 16 points against the Bengals. They allowed 17 points against the Bengals. Total yards allowed was 327. Ravens allowed 432. Yeah. Rushing yards. Want to take a gander as to how many rushing yards the Browns had last week?
How many they ran for? Oh.
Yeah. Total rushing yards last week for the Browns.
I feel like it's going to be bad. Is it?
It's less than 50.
I was just about to say, is it 50?
49.
Oh, my
49
God.
yards the Browns rushed for last week against the Ravens, who rushed for 238 and passed for 209. Now, granted, Joe Flacco slinged the ball everywhere, as you would imagine. Yeah. He threw it for 290 yards, 2 interceptions, however. Which is
and
Joe's
that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, I actually just had this pulled up. The Browns and last season had, you know, when we talk about the difference in these two games, last year the Bills led the league plus 24 in turnover differential, so they had 24 more turnovers than they committed, or forced 24 more than they committed. Browns negative 22, the worst in football. That's where, you know, we talk about this defense needs to create turnovers. What does everyone talk about when the Browns beat the Ravens last year? How many turnovers did the Ravens drop? Eddie Jackson alone dropped 7 interceptions, it felt, 3 of which would have ended games. Kyle Hamilton, of all people, is dropping things in his hands. It was like then they had a million opportunities. Jameis Winston was just literally asking for somebody. He didn't care what uniform they were in to catch the football. Like he doesn't like the ball touching the ground. He's like, as long as someone catches it, he's okay. Now, you know, you're against Cleveland. They're going to give you opportunity.
Now, here's the thing. Yards allowed from the defenses, both defenses of the games last week. Now, I know it's week 1, and I know that like a lot of crazy things happen. Week 1 always is like, oh, it's the 4th preseason game of the year. But even so, allowing 7 yards in the second half of a game, whether it's preseason or not, is bananas. And that's what the Browns did last week. They allowed only 141 yards, while the Ravens had allowed 465, which is pretty crazy. Rushing yards allowed on the Ravens side of the ball is 71, and the Browns allowed 46 total. Passing yards allowed, this is where Joe Flacco could do a lot of damage. Passing yards allowed from the Ravens was 394. So out of those 465, nearly 400 yards were through the air that was allowed on the Ravens side of the ball. Neither one of them had a turnover. But, you know, only allowing 7 yards in the second half of a ball game, you would expect to win. But in Browns' typical fashion, they ended up losing. My hope is that something like that, if the Ravens can't score more than 7 or can't go for more than 7 yards offensively in the second half, that something like that happens for the Browns.
And I mean, their defense is going to be where this, you know, Ravens offense versus Browns defense is really going to be where this game is won and lost. Yeah. That's 2 really good units going at it. And, you know, the Browns, it starts and ends with Myles Garrett, because if Myles Garrett can wreck the game, if he can get pressure every play, he can be what he is. And there's a reason why he gets paid what he does,
right?
Almost like a quarterback, because he impacts the game like that. They have to contain him and make sure he is not wrecking this game. And as long as they do that, I expect them to put up, close over to, 25 to 30 points. And then it's going to be just defense. Get right. That's the biggest thing, is has to be a get right game for the defense, because, well, I mean, one, they're shit talking you. I mean, if there's anything, right. And we can get into that Ross Tucker clip next of him talking about the storylines, but that is where this, game I think comes down to, is the Ravens offense has to beat the Browns defense. And then the Ravens defense just has to make sure, hey, let's do what we did for the first 3 quarters last week, and we should be good.
Yeah, and my hope is that it is like a typical AFC North game. I do think that it's going to be very physical. And speaking of trash talking, you were just mentioning that Jerry Jeudy claimed that there was no challenges from the Baltimore secondary, and it's kind of hard to really fault him for that after they allowed 394 passing yards in week 1. But you said Ross, talked about that a little bit. There was another bit where, what was it? Grant Delpit, is that his name?
Yeah, Grant Delpit
said that it's not hard to tackle Derrick Henry, which I don't know how. I guess maybe it's not hard to tackle a freight train. I'm not quite sure. Myles Garrett did note that the Browns have played them well recently, aims to disrupt Jackson's varied looks. I think Myles Garrett was not trying to fall into some of the trash talking, but
because this is what I was talking about earlier. Myles Garrett was pissed because he understood that all of them are writing checks he has to cash.
Yeah,
they were tackling Derrick Henry ain't nothing, and Myles Garrett's like, because I'm the one who has to do it now. Because now I'm the one who has to be the disruptor. They're like this Ravens team ain't shit. And Myles Garrett's like, now I have to be the one to win this game. They're all like, guys. we got Myles Garrett. And they're like, okay. He's like, let me do my own thing. That's what I do love about Myles Garrett, is he is always one of those guys where he is very I just have fun. I just, I'll go out there. And then I feel like his teammates are like, we're gonna mess him up. And it's like, okay, Myles is like, I think they are a very good team, and it's going to be a good matchup. And the rest of them are like, nah, we're whooping ass. Yeah. It's like, okay, that's all.
But Ross Tucker of CBS did talk about this, and he's going to be covering the game this week. We ended up interviewing him earlier this week, talking about the trash talk between these two AFC North teams. Go and play that clip, Zach.
Well, I mean, I'm just so pumped to have this game because the storylines are crazy, man. I mean, you got Joe Flacco's first game back in Baltimore. I mean, that's crazy. Then you got the 30th anniversary of the Ravens, as a franchise. Speaking of 30th anniversaries, and they're having the ceremony against the Browns, which obviously people in Cleveland are not happy about at all. And I don't know if you saw it, Ryan, but Jerry Jeudy, the Browns receiver, was asked about the challenges that the Ravens secondary presents. He said no challenges. They asked Brown safety Grant Delpit how hard it was to bring down Derrick Henry. He said, not hard at all. I mean, hey, I love it. I'm doing the game on TV. Keep it coming, fellas. Keep it coming. Give me the animosity. Give me the rivalry. Give me everything. Give me all the bulletin board material. I am beyond fired up for this one. The Browns defense looked nasty against the Bengals. They gave up 7 yards in the second half to Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and the Bengals. I think I got to look it up, but might have been the first team to lose in 25 years, giving up 7 yards.
It's typical Browns.
Yeah.
That's a typical Browns thing to happen. I think, though, that the Browns aren't going to have nearly as easy of a time with this Ravens offense as they did with Cincinnati. Only reason I say that is because that's typical Cincinnati. Cincinnati does not. They have for the first 4 weeks in Cincinnati. It's like they don't know what they're doing, and then all of a sudden they kind of figure it all out, and then they go on a ridiculous tear, winning 8 in a row, some dumb shit like that. So I think that, and we just talked about it before this clip, that week one obviously isn't indicative of what's going to take place the rest of the season. The Browns are going to have a really hard time against that Ravens offense, no matter what.
Yeah. And, that's where it all starts and stops with how they contain Myles Garrett. Do not let him be a game wrecker. And
don't let him sit back there and play basketball while he's waiting for the ball to get snapped.
What a clip.
Just incredible.
That's the stuff he's going to do. They're going to line him up to get advantageous, matchups. They're going to put him on Falele. They're going to put him on Rosengarten. They're going to find the weak spot of whoever's playing the worst. They're going to put him on him and make, them stop him. So for the Ravens, it's how do you counter it? Are we running, play actions? Are we doing counters? Are we sending, blindside blocks? Are we pulling guys? Are we not pulling guys? How are they going to counter Myles Garrett to get him out of rhythm? Are they going to make him they love making him the option man when they can, because now he's got to choose. Am I going for Derrick Henry? Am I going for Lamar? That split second, it can be the difference. It's just these are the matchups where one, with all the headlines going into this should be a good game.
Yeah.
This should really be a good game. The Browns, love Joe Flacco. If they had a better quarterback, they would be. They have a really good roster.
Yeah.
It really does come down to how the quarterback play goes. But, when you talk about smash mouth, trash talk, Derrick Henry pretty much just said, "We'll see you Sunday," when asked about the comments, which is probably the scariest thing Cleveland heard. Because Derrick Henry's like, "We'll just play on the field."
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I think it's funny because that's like how Myles Garrett is. He's
right.
like, they're like, "Hey, all your guys are saying this." He's like, we're just going to play. And then Derrick Henry's like, "We're just going to play." And then the other guys are like, "Nah, yeah, we gonna whoop ass." And it's like, all right, but keep it coming.
I also feel like after Derrick Henry's fumble, he's so pissed off that he's about to run for 200 yards.
I would not be surprised. And, this, like I said, this Browns defense very stout. So it's going to be a tough task, but man, if there's someone, Derrick Henry, he's one of those guys too, where like he might have 45, 50 rushing yards in the fourth quarter, but that's when it turns on, because he's due, it feels like, at least once a fourth quarter for one, maybe two 25+ yard runs, because eventually like it breaks you. You can only tackle a human being that size so often coming at you that fast. And like after that, you eventually like, they start making business decisions. You start maybe
for sure
taking a little bit of a wrong
all
angle to avoid it.
Tackle.
Exactly.
The guy who's easy to tackle all of a sudden becomes not so easy. I want to talk. I know it's kind of crazy, but dude, the weather today, it's going to be 90 degrees almost.
I don't know if I love or hate that.
I don't either.
I can't tell. Which is, I wore a sweatshirt, which was a horrible decision. I'm
in shorts and I'm in this jersey.
I wore
all I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
I'm still probably going to sweat my ass off.
Yeah. And this is that September football where it's not football weather. It does not feel like football weather, but I'm interested to see how that impacts the game, because this is going to be, you don't really have that, it's cold, the run game or all this. It would not surprise me if this is a higher scoring game, because it's going to be hot. You thought the defense was winded last week. If they get 80 plays again, it's going to be 80 plays in the 90-degree heat. So it's going to be very key. And I think, last week, one of the reasons the Ravens defense got so gassed was because, the Ravens, let's be honest, when they had the offense, they were running with pace, because that's how they got the Bills off of, their schedule. That's how they caught them off guard. That's why they were able to, kind of score so many points. But the downside to that is even their big, drives, they were going 6-7 plays in 3 minutes and scoring.
Yeah.
And then the defense was right back out there.
Right.
And even though the defense for most of them was stopping them, the defense would go 8, 9 plays, stop them, at the 50-yard line. But they were out there for 3, 4, 5 minutes again. Then, the Ravens go score on 3 plays, and you're like, okay, let's give the defense a second. I wouldn't be surprised, especially versus the Browns, if something we see is the Ravens slow it down a little bit.
And we can talk about that a little bit. So tell me, we do have a Marvin Lewis clip to play. What's this clip about?
Yeah, so if we're doing the one about defense, so pretty much Marvin Lewis talked about, really veterans and adding that veteran leadership, and just kind of talked about as that defense, that 2000s defense, how adding veterans and stuff, it made these players great. You know, it took these guys from great to legendary, especially the Ray Lewises. So it really is interesting because we talk about, you know, let's be honest. What was the big talking point this week in the secondary? Like immaturity, you know, stuff like that. Could it be, we have 5 first-round picks back there. You know, Marlon and Jair are your quote-unquote veterans, but, you know, who has stepped up? So very interesting point. So let's play that and just kind of react to it.
These are great, and I was very fortunate to coach that group of players.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different style now.
You think?
To say the least. I gotta know. You know, you were behind the scenes. If you could explain to people what those types of practices were like. It felt like that was a whole different energy in a group that you had there back in 2000.
Yeah, it really was. And I tell people a couple of things that stick out. You know, when we signed Rod Woodson in '98, he helped empower Ray to be even more special than Ray already was. And that was really cool. So when we brought Rod in, he helped Mike McCreary, Rob Burnett, some of the pros we already had, Goose, see how here's a guy who had been all pro already at 2 positions, and how he ate, how he studied, how he trained. It was special for those guys. And for the young guys, the Dwayne Starks and later the Chris McAllisters, the Peter Boulwares, the Jamie Sharpers, Cornell Brown, all those guys we had. You know, Rod helped set a standard that way.
And I think there's something to be said about this because I'm not quite sure when Marvin talks about setting a standard, I'm not quite sure I can put my finger on anyone in that locker room on the defensive side of the ball that is that guy that sets the standard.
Yeah. I think that's part of the issue right now is I would say probably your leader veteran wise of that locker room. And he's, you know, it's not even the star player. It's probably like a Kyle Van Noy. And like, that's the thing is I'm not sure the standard of greatness that's like, you know, like you said, there isn't that sure about, you know, like Rob Woodson, like there's not that sure about Hall of Famer. They're like, okay, that's the guy that we are modeling it all after. So yeah, right now, and I think you want to say that, you know, leaders have to emerge. I think for a while people really thought that was Roquan, but now you're kind of looking at it and you're like, okay, is it Roquan? Does someone else need to step up? Does it need to be a Matabike? Does it need to be a young Kyle Hamilton? Even though he's the young guy, does he need to, you know, I think down the line, Kyle Hamilton becomes that, but you know, it's no fault to him. He just hasn't been in the league long enough to be that veteran. Hey, do what he does, all of that. And right now it's where they need it. So I think one thing is, I think that's where Chuck Pagano needs to be big. You know, I
was just about to ask you about that because I feel as though, like, you know, they brought him in kind of, I guess, to help out Zach Orr, because speaking of young guys, Zach Orr is in his 2nd year as a defensive coordinator. And I think a lot of people, myself included, had some doubts as far as, you know, could he be that guy as far as defensive coordinator for the Ravens and be effective? I think so far it's been, the verdict is still out. You know, because it's just been a little bit inconsistent, a lot of it inconsistent. So you bring in a guy like Chuck Pagano, who was a former defensive coordinator for the Ravens and had some elite defenses of his own, went on to be a head coach and now is back. I think I'm not going to sit here and say that if things start to go really far south that Chuck Pagano just steps into that role. I mean, maybe, but I just would be surprised if that happened. But I am interested to see or find out, like, what exactly he is doing as far as providing insight to what's going on with his defense.
Yeah, and that's where I'm hoping this week Chuck, you know, kind of took a stand because
was he kicking some asses? Like, what was going on?
Exactly, because the one thing, if you've watched any Chuck Pagano defense, the one thing they are is aggressive.
Well, and he gets in their ass too.
Exactly. And it's like to a detriment at times. They're overly aggressive. But we saw the exact opposite down the stretch. They became overly conservative. So I would not be surprised this week if you see in big moments them go for it. Them be like, hey, we are sending the house. We'll send 7, have 4 cover, and you got to make a play. And I think that's going to be something that they need to do, because personally, I was like watching last week. I was like, Chuck Pagano's got to be losing his mind sitting there. Drop 11 back at the end of the half. He's got to be like, I would send all 11 if I could.
Yeah.
It's like it was just a completely different thing. So I'm intrigued, one, because he is, working with secondaries and stuff. I know, I hope that he, the meetings, I would love to be a fly on the wall of those meetings, because something like you said, Chuck Pagano, he's an old school coach. I would not be surprised if there was a lot of colorful language used to describe their performance at the end of last week. And maybe that's what they needed, though.
Yeah.
Maybe they just needed that, big slice of humble pie week 1 of, you guys thought because there were 5 first-round picks in this secondary that, shit was going to be easy, shit's going to be sweet. No, you got to work. You got to do the right things. And one, can't let the others down. Now, also, you can talk about, pass rush has to get there.
Sure.
All of that stuff. But it really is. It just did not feel like, and yes, Zach Orr's defense, but it didn't feel like a defense that had Chuck Pagano on staff.
No, did not. It didn't seem like it had any of his fingerprints on it. That's for sure. So we're winding down a little bit. You guys, thanks for joining the show. It's a little bit different just because obviously Rip's not here.
Yeah.
None of us will be here next Sunday.
Yeah.
And
thankfully the Ravens play Monday.
Yes, thankfully the Ravens play Monday. We'll be hopefully back in time for a show. At least you and I will be back in time for the show on Monday. And so that being said, next Monday. This Monday we'll be here. Won't be a problem. It'll be Zach and I once again. But Rip will be here virtually as well. But as we wind down, we do have some picks to take care of, and of course that's brought to you by our sponsors over there, Charlestown Races over there in West Virginia. Shout out to Hollywood Casino for sponsoring the show. We have our best bets for this week, Zach, for the game, and so as you can see there, Zach, you're leading off with Derrick Henry over 96.5 yards.
Yeah, I mean, you talk shit about Derrick Henry, you got to come back it up. He's pissed off. He fumbled, and then the Browns decided to put more shit talk, put more bulletin board material.
Yeah.
I think, one, this is, and hell, I am very aware, kind of like I said, I would not be surprised if he's at 50 yards going into the fourth quarter and then ends with 125, because I feel like when the game, if the Ravens have the lead, Derrick Henry's looking at John Harbaugh going, give me the damn rock. I'm ending this thing right now.
Yeah, the Bengals allowed 49 total rushing yards versus the Bengals last week, but I don't think that happens this week.
No.
They didn't face they faced Jerome Ford and 2 rookies. I just don't think that that's going to be anywhere near the same type of challenge as will be this week. Rip picked Travis Etienne over 54.5 yards.
That's also the third pick he sent me. This is the third time I had to make the graphic. First we had George Pickens for him, then we had Tyler Warren, and then after he got off, he texts and goes, actually make it Travis Etienne over. And I was like, okay. I was like, gotcha. I gotcha. So
I don't know about that. How do you feel about that?
Well, Travis Etienne last week, he looked like Travis Etienne again, and to the point where the Jaguars literally got rid of
it was against the Panthers.
Yeah, but they get rid of Tank Bigsby, so it is all Travis Etienne now. I'm just at this point, I'm intrigued because I'm in the boat of, can he do it again? Because he looked rough last year. So if it
just feels like it's hard to trust a guy like Travis Etienne.
Oh, without a doubt, and especially I think we'll see, because obviously the Bengals, versus the Bengals might jump out to a big lead and they might have to be throwing the ball. So it's going to be, this is something where I think early on in the game, you might get your answer on that one.
Yeah. And your boy picked Joe Flacco for 1+ interceptions, -192. This is the biggest payout of all 3 of them. And I think it's the easiest one to pick. Joe Flacco is going to throw the ball all over the goddamn place. He threw for 2 interceptions last week against a Cincy defense that isn't anywhere near what, in my opinion, the Ravens defense is capable of, despite what we saw last week. I do think that we see some turnovers from Joe, and this should be an easy lock for anybody looking to find one with Joe Flacco, 1+ interception.
Especially after the Ravens dropped 2 last week. Like, I just feel like every single guy in the Ravens secondary right now. They just want one. Like they
Yeah.
just want one, and there's not a better guy, for to go up against than Joe Flacco. Every Baltimore fan who has ever watched Joe Flacco knows it is the
He's
most.
good for one.
Yeah, he is good for one. He is gonna air it out, but what comes with like if it's 3rd and 20, he has or hell 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. He has no issue saying, I'm going to throw this 50 yards down the field. If they intercept it, it's just a punt.
Yep.
Like he is and that's, the kind of that old school, I don't really care about my stats. I'm going to do what's best for, us. I'm going to take the shot, hope for a PI, hope for a catch. Worst case, they intercept it on the 3-yard line.
Right.
So, he's got that old school mentality, which I think really makes this an advantageous spot for the Ravens to maybe get 1 or 2, go grab a few, get some confidence back up. And this is where you can change the game.
Yeah, and double your money.
Yeah. So hopefully hopefully the Ravens defense can pick a few off and keep it in the hands this time.
Yeah, for sure. So there you go. There's our picks for the week, brought to you by Hollywood Casino over there in Charlestown, Races in West Virginia. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. I don't think we have anything left, do we?
No.
I think that's kind of it for us. So a little bit of a shorter show. We're going to start to get back into the swing of things once we're all back under the same roof. I think what we have in store for you guys, you're going to love more of those boots on the ground. If you guys remember from last year's show, more of those boots on the ground type content. Plus, we're going to be doing some destination locations. Cannot wait for those. So, guys, make sure you're tuning in. Also, check out the channel members. We did revamp a lot of that. We're going to be throwing out a Friday newsletter, which we didn't get to this week. We're just too busy to start it this week. We will be starting that next week. So make sure you keep a lookout for that, as well as all kinds of other great content, some interviews that won't be seen at least for a while for the public. So hit that join button next to subscribe. And thanks so much for tuning in. Hit that like button on your way out the door. And Zach, any other last words for you?
Go Ravens. Just win.
Ravens by a million.
Ravens by a million, baby. We'll see you next time.
All right.